Let's talk about taxes instead of Mr. Lightheimer, because a new Treasury audit is revealing the impact of the SALT cap. Now, about 11 million people will feel the tax pain because they can no longer deduct more than $10,000 in state and local taxes from their federal income taxes. Joining us now, Yahoo Finance's Kristin Myers with the latest. All right, we know where this hits: New York, California, Massachusetts, the usual suspects, right?
Right. So, Adam, those 11 million people are still going to continue to itemize their deductions despite those SALT caps, as you mentioned, that caps at $10,000, even though that new tax law actually expanded standard deductions, nearly doubling it. But as you mentioned, people that are living in high tax states like New York, New Jersey, California, Illinois, Wisconsin, they're really going to be feeling that the most. Now, these SALT caps have been widely unpopular, but they are set to expire at the end of 2025. But, you know, last fall, before the midterm elections, the House actually decided to pass this bill called Tax Reform 2.0 that's going to be building on and modifying the TCJA, the new tax law. But the Senate never took it up for a vote, and it's unlikely or unsure that they will, and unlikely that it would receive a lot of support, considering that a lot of Republicans in blue states have criticized these SALT caps and also are looking ahead to 2020 and want to make sure that their constituents aren't angry about this issue.
You know, a lot of people can make arguments about the state and local tax deduction and the loss of that. The likelihood that Democrats would restore it in a government that's desperate for revenue. I mean, originally it was Dan Rostenkowski many decades ago, a Democrat, who first proposed removing this. Anybody talking about seriously bringing it back? Because it doesn't look like it's ever coming back.
No, and I haven't heard a lot of talk about that either. Again, Democrats have just really derided this whole tax bill as really meaning tax cuts for the rich, tax cuts for big corporations. I would probably see that they'd rather just overhaul the whole thing altogether.
All right, Kristin, thank you. Mattie, I want to bring this to you. Obviously, you know a thing or two about taxes, and you say that this 11 million figures, not necessarily, it's a little bit deceiving, perhaps.
Right, because it doesn't tell you the whole story on the SALT deduction. Remember that the other thing that TCJA did was that it fixed the AMT for a number of taxpayers. 5 million people were paying the AMT before the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. That's the alternative minimum tax, which required people making a certain amount of money to pay a minimum amount of tax. And what
so that they couldn't claim all kinds of
Correct, and how they make sure that minimum tax is fulfilled is that it prohibits them from claiming things like the state and local tax deduction. So for many of those 5 million filers, the state and local tax cap was zero. They couldn't use it at all.
And now they're going to get 10 grand.
So now it's gone up to 10,000 for them. So this story about 11 million filers getting hit by this cap, it doesn't show you how the actual tax picture has changed for these people. Because of the changes in Tax Cut and Jobs Act, there's now only 200,000 people paying the AMT, down from 5.2 million. That is a sizable difference in the number of people who are going to be ensnared by this. Now, of course, this is a temporary fix. As we said with many things on the income side of what was done in tax reform, most of these provisions expire by 2026. So that means that when we go from 200,000 people paying the AMT all the way up to 7 million if this doesn't get pushed.
Right. I was going to say, and when you say there are fewer people who got ensnared in it, that depends on whether you think the AMT is a good thing or a bad thing.
That's true. Well, and you know, Adam, you raised a good point about Rostenkowski. A Democrat from Illinois was someone who thought we should eliminate this deduction. This is something that really does divide Democrats and Republicans actually in different kinds of corners. Because frankly, the people who are paying or who are using the SALT deduction are high income earners. 80% of the people using this are making over $100,000 a year. That's why they're the ones who get hit by the AMT and were the ones who lost the SALT deduction to begin with. It goes highly to the progressive side of the code. And the fact that Democrats want to bring it back really does belie their other talking points about how they really want to make the code more progressive.
Well, and this is something, this is something real, and this is affecting those people, the high-income earners. These are not the people who, and to me, the larger tax story right now is one of confusion, which is people complaining about the size of their refund.
This is killing me.
It's going to help them. Well, but I just mean, that's a story that has gotten so big, and we hear about it, and it's become so oversized, and it's all based on kind of misconceptions. Here's something real, it's actually happening, and yet is being framed a little bit misleading.
Like everything with taxes, it seems like the story needs to be told over and over and over again until we get it right. You're right. Your refund has nothing to do with the size of your tax liability. And the fact that you gave an interest-free loan to the government for the rest of the year shouldn't make you particularly excited. We need a re-education a little bit on Americans on that.
Well, we've been trying to do our part. All right, Mattie, thanks for coming in. Mattie Duppler from National Taxpayers Union. Good to see you as always.